Hey guys, my name is Matsumo, and welcome to your episode of Monday Mailbox. This is a video series where you, the viewer, can submit your gaming-related questions, and then I'll give my humble opinion on them. To get the formalities out of the way real quick, if you'd like to submit your own question that could be featured in an upcoming episode, you can do so by leaving a comment down below, or by sending me a Facebook or Twitter message. The first question for the day is, did you hear that Ubisoft is gonna buff Nokk again? I did hear that. I think it was in a recent PC Gamer interview. They basically came out and said that Nokk is still underperforming and that they're considering and looking into giving her another primary weapon. Now, what's funny about this is that, first of all, many of you are probably thinking right now, what took you so long? But also, this was going to be the way that Ubisoft was going to design and introduce her into Rainbow Six Siege in the first place. When they were creating Nokk, you may have noticed on her character model that she actually has gadgets and attachments that go with another primary weapon. She was going to have something that was going to be much more powerful. But in that design phase, at the last second from the sounds of it, they realized that giving her something stronger was going to make her overpowered, or at least that was their fear, and so they gave her something else. But as we all know, that is not the way that things turned out, especially with the one that she has right now. And so while over this last year, because she's been in the game for a while now, she's gotten a couple buffs here and there, and I think for the most part, she's at least in a decent place, as long as you don't mind that playstyle. But if we're being realistic with ourselves, she's still a very niche character, and she probably could use some improving. And so the question is now, what weapon will they actually give her? Now, I'd be very surprised if out of nowhere they gave her access to some of the best weapons, because admittedly, they still do need to walk that fine line. Her gadget can be terrifying. If all of a sudden out of nowhere, Nokk just pops up and she has like the R4C or something equivalent to that and just melts you with something that is that good, that is going to be very frustrating. There does need to be some strengths and weaknesses here, but I do think that she should be compromised. And so one idea that I really like is maybe giving her access to Jackal's SMG. It doesn't see a whole lot of play because his alternative is admittedly a lot better and more reliable, but I still think that it would probably be better than the option that Nokk currently has. It also can use an ACOG, which is something that people have been really requesting with this operator specifically, and so having something that is a bit more reliable, especially considering it has a lot of rounds as well, could be a step in the right direction. And so in general, I'm really curious to see how Ubisoft is going to be handling things. In the interview, it states that this is going to happen for a couple of months, so we are going to have to wait for this update, but I cannot wait for this. Nokk is already one of my favorite operators. I think that she's in a decent place, as I mentioned, but having something that is stronger and more reliable is definitely not something that I am going to be disappointed by, and so I cannot wait for this update. The next question comes from Travis, and it is, are you disappointed that House isn't going to be a ranked map? There is a part of me that is a bit upset about this, but at the same time, I can also understand why Ubisoft has made this decision. I realize that many of you watching right now play Rainbow Six Siege exclusively for that competitive action. You really enjoy ranked, and casual isn't something that you enjoy. And so the idea of Ubisoft spending so much time on a map that isn't going to be seen whatsoever in that ranked environment is going to be disappointing. You want to have more content, and it feels like this season is a waste for you, and you're going to have to wait essentially another 3 months, and so 6 months total before you can get content, or at least a map that is to your liking. And so from that standpoint, I can absolutely see why people aren't really too thrilled by this news. At the same time, though, we have to realize that this game appeals to a very large audience. If I had to go on a limb and guess, I would say that more people play this game casually than they do competitive. They don't want to rank up. They don't want to learn all the different angles and be the best player out there. They're just going to log in with their friends, have a good time, play a couple of matches, and then call it good. And so the idea that we can't go back and rework an old casual map because it can't be competitive, I feel like is missing out on a very large portion of the player base. Now, I know that some people argue, well, why don't they just rework it enough so that it does become competitive? That way we get the best of both worlds. That way you can play it in ranked and in casual. What's the harm in doing that? And that's actually a great point to bring up. But I feel like if they did that, it would no longer be house anymore. One of the most appealing aspects about this map was its size. It was very small, it allowed for a more aggressive playstyle, matches were very fast, but the problem with that smallness was that it had a lot of issues. Like, that was the reason why it's getting this rework in the first place. But the thing is that if you wanted to keep the same essence of what makes house, you can't go much larger. As soon as you do so, which I feel like is almost a requirement if you want this map to actually make its way into ranks, it would no longer be the map that people loved and really enjoyed from the very beginning. I feel like Ubisoft had to make a decision. They essentially just want to make a brand new map from scratch and just call it house, or do they just want to improve upon its existing problems? We can see that choice that they made. And so all in all, while I absolutely understand where you're coming from, I also share in this disappointment. Hopefully you can get why Ubisoft decided to do this. This game appeals to a very large audience. There's a lot of casual players, and I think that that's what they were going for with this update. The next one comes from Doom Guy, and it is, out of all the DLC operators in Siege, who do you think was the biggest game changer of all time? So when I first read this, I thought you were talking about the two operators coming out, and I would say Malusi, and we'll get to that here in a second. But out of all of the DLC operators, I would go with Mira. I know that when Blackbeard came out and Ella and Lion, when they came in, they were just straight busted. But I think that Mira has fundamentally changed the game in an impactful way that no other character since then has ever even come close to achieving. She makes some objectives incredibly defensive. She makes some objectives that weren't viable actually viable. The fact that her gadget is so simplistic but changes the game in such a fundamental way, I think is a really astonishing achievement that Ubisoft was able to accomplish. Now, granted, she's constantly sidelined in ranked. You can hardly ever play her because of this very notion, but I think that really speaks volumes. Now, out of the two new operators coming out, it's Malusi and Ace. While it is admittedly a bit too early to tell because we need to figure out strategies and how they're going to fit into the meta, if I had to go on a limb, though, I would say that Malusi out of the bunch is definitely going to be the one that people are going to gravitate to more. Even though Ace is awesome, 2 armor, 2 speed with Fuse's primary weapon, like, he is going to be a force to be reckoned with, but he also has a lot of counters. In some situations, he's going to be one of the worst operators to get through reinforcement if defense knows what they're doing. Malusi, on the other hand, she's difficult to work around. You place this down in the middle, literally the middle of the room, and if offense has nothing long range to deal with it, good luck pushing from that angle. It makes a lot of noise. It slows you down. I think people were saying that it's the equivalent of like 16 barbed wires in some cases. Like, the amount of utility that this brings is incredible. And I would not be surprised if Ubisoft had to go on in and make some small adjustments. It's probably too early. We're jumping to conclusions here because it's only been a week, but I would not be surprised if she needed a couple of small nerfs. I still think even if they dropped her gadget from 3 to 2, that she would still be powerful. Only having 2, well, yeah, it's not as much. Locking down 2 hallways or 2 rooms essentially is still going to provide an incredible amount of support for your team. The next one comes from Harry, and it is, my question is, do you think that Siege goal of 100 operators will make some characters unrealistic and thus disenfranchising some people because of a lot of people playing the game for realism and may not like the unrealistic characters that might come out? So I agree. I 100% understand where you're coming from, but I feel like we've already reached that point, and we reached that point when Rainbow Six Siege first came out. Pulse is an operator that can literally see where you are through walls. We have all these characters. Lion, you have Habana. Yes, her gadget might seem more authentic, but there's nothing like that, or at least I don't believe there's anything like that in real life. There's already a lot of futuristic and unrealistic characters in this game, and it's only going to get worse from here. Without a shadow of a doubt, it's going to continue with this trend. I feel like Ubisoft has also come to this conclusion, and that's why we're only going to be getting from here on out one new operator with each season. Yeah, this might be because it gives them more time to rework old existing operators or gives them more time to come up with ideas, but I also think it's because of this problem. There's only so many ways to get into a building. There's only so many many information or camera gadgets that you can add on in until you step into that unrealistic territory. And so I do think that you're onto something. And so all in all, I do agree to some extent. I think that Ubisoft should have the flexibility to come up with really creative operators that are authentic and fit the universe, but don't go too far. I don't want to have operators that can stand still and turn invisible or have like a camouflage. Like, that is pushing things way too far. But having characters like what they've added in with this update in particular, I think is halfway decent, especially with someone like Ace. I think Ace is a perfect illustration of a new operator that doesn't break the mold and fits the theme of Rainbow Six Siege. But obviously that is just my 2 cents. But yeah, guys, that is what it for today's episode of Monday Mailbox. I hope you enjoyed. Let me know what you thought about what we discussed in today's video. Are you excited about the Nokk upgrade? How do you want them to go about it? Give me your guys' thoughts down below. As always, if you'd like to submit your own question for an upcoming episode, you can also leave a comment or by sending me a Facebook or Twitter message. But until next time, guys, have a good one and take it easy.